Hello, welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I invite you to have a beer with me and discuss FPL. Because after all, what could be better? If you like the video, please like and subscribe. So today, I thought we would talk about FPL Rate My Team tools. If you don't know what those are, I'll explain in a moment. But basically what I want to discuss is, are these tools any good? Number one. And number two, is using these tools tantamount to cheating? I don't think tantamount's a word. I use the wrong word there. But anyway, basically, is using an FPL Rate My Team tool cheating? So, an FPL Rate My Team tool, in order to illustrate one, I'm going to use a video from FPL Review. So there are basically, at least as far as I'm aware, 4 main Rate My Tool websites. They are Fantasy Football Scout and FPL Review, which I am subscribers to, paid subscribers to, and there's also FPL Hub and FPL Flicks. There may be other ones, but I certainly think those are the main ones. So I don't want to break any copyright here, which is why I'm not going to go into the Rate My Teams tools using my access. But here is something from FPL Review, which basically shows us what a Rate My Team tool is. So basically, a Rate My Team tool uses an algorithm of some kind based on players' minutes, shots on target, expected goals, etc., to give a predicted points rating for each player in any given game week. So here we can see in FPL Reviews, using FPL's Reviews algorithm, these players, I think this video was posted about 6 months ago, are predicted to get this amount of points in game week 33, this amount of points in games week 34, and this is the total amount of points they're predicted to get over these 6 game weeks. So basically, the common thing that all FPL Rate My Teams tool have in common is they provide a predicted point score for each player in every given game week and across multiple game weeks. So what they also do is allow you to plug your team in. Usually they'll automatically update your team at the start of every new game week, give you an idea of how many points each player's going to score, give you an idea of how many points you're going to score overall in a given game week, who you should bench, who you should captain, who you should vice captain. If you click on this button here in FPL Review, it also basically tells you the transfer tips that, based on the algorithm, the transfer in any given game week it thinks is going to result in you getting the highest number of points from that transfer. So you can look at them in 2 ways. One way is that they give you a rough guide to an FPL team, which you can take on board. Maybe reject it, maybe take on board the advice and follow it. Just a very rough, loose thing you can use to sort of test out ideas. On the extreme end, perhaps you basically use it to run your FPL team. You follow it like a Bible, basically, in terms of your FPL decisions. So there are 4 main sites, as I said. There's FPL Review, which I'm subscribed to, and this is basically just a Rate My Team tool. It doesn't give you any Opta data, any expected goals, anything like that. It does have a feature that gives you predicted odds in terms of clean sheets, based on bookies' odds, and goal scorers and assist makers, which I find quite useful. But other than the predicted odds and the rate my team. It doesn't do much else. You then have FPL Scout, which I'm also a member of. That also has a rate my team feature, which works pretty much identically to this one. It's not as well optimized as this one, but it works pretty well. But if you subscribe to that, it also gives you a hell of a lot of other access to a hell of a lot of other information, which if you ever watch an FPL Scout video, they will tell you about over and over and over again, like heat maps and expected goals and who's underperformed and who's overperformed in terms of that sort of metric. So you get more than just the Rate My Team tool from a subscription there, but we're focusing on Rate My Team tools in this video. FPL Hub is very similar, as is FPL Flicks, the other two main websites. I think they give you, as I said, I'm not subscribed to those two, but having looked at the websites, I think they give you access to FPL heat maps and expected goals conceded. Similar to FPL Scout, they also give you a price change predictor. Both of those websites, although you can actually access those for free, so you don't need to be a subscriber. But the basic thing that all four of them offer is this sort of Rate My Team, which is basically, it doesn't really rate your team. It predicts how many points your team's going to score and gives you advice about what transfers you might want to make, who you might want to captain, who you want to bench, etc. So that's the basic criteria of what a Rate My Team tool is. So first of all, are they any good? Well, in order to illustrate this, I am going to show you my game week history. Let's see, I'm going to blow this up a bit. So I've been playing FPL for how many years now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 years. So this is my 10th year as a player. So the first 3 years, so obviously, you get better usually at something the more you play it. Hopefully, from experience and knowing things like, not to make transfers too early, etc. But it's first 3 years where my average finish, I guess, was around 200,000. I wasn't using any Rate My Team tools at all. I was basically just making my decisions based on what I'd seen in the games. I was using FPL Scout at that time, but I wasn't using the Rate My Team tool. So in 2018-19, I started using the FPL Scout. I became a member of FPL Scout and started using their Rate My Team tool. Not really to particularly guide my transfers. I don't actually think they have a suggested transfer feature in their Rate My Team tool. It's pretty basic, but basically to guide my decisions. Is this a stupid decision? Am I going to lose points from doing this over the next 6 game weeks, or am I going to gain points? And as you can see, it had a positive effect on my rank pretty much immediately. So then I finished 97,000, 32,000. I didn't have such great seasons the next 2 seasons, 150,000, 190,000, but you can still see all 4 of those seasons were better than my previous 3 seasons. And then the last 2 years, I subscribed to FPL Review, and as you can see, that has done wonders for how well I've done. So 2 seasons ago, I finished 12,000. I was very near to getting in the top 10,000. It still pisses me off. And last season, I was in 3,000, which was my best finish yet. You might think I'm going to conclude from this that FPL Rate My Team are a good thing. But then we're going to scroll down to my ranking this season. 5.3 million. Can you believe it? That is by far my worst ranking by game week. What are we in? Game week 9 or 10 of the season, whatever we're in. Even when I was using absolutely no tools or even looking at any sort of content at all. So, I mean, the basic lesson I think from that is that Rate My Team tools are as good as their algorithm they're based on. So, for example, I would suggest at least in previous season, the Rate My Team, FPL review algorithm was a lot stronger than the FPL Scout algorithm. I mean, you can see that in my performance, but you can also see that just by looking at the predicted points. The FPL Scout Rate My Team tool still had Sterling scoring ridiculous amounts of points every week, when he'd basically been shit for about a year and a half. But this season, obviously, I very closely follow the algorithm. That's part of the danger in the algorithm as well, is the better you do using the algorithm, the more likely you are. You know, I've never been as strict. I've never let FPL Review or any other team, any other site, pick my pre-season draft and then dictate all of my transfers. I always have some input into it, ignore certain things, use my own input from my own experience of watching football or what content creators have been suggesting to override FPL Rate My Team tools. But the better you do with it, the more likely you are to take that advice over your own advice. And as you can see this season, that, at least up until now, that has really not worked out. So yeah, I would, in terms of which one's the best one, I would probably say FPL Review is the best. If you ever listen to any content creators talk about Rate My Team tools, or they usually refer to them as algorithms, they almost always talk about FPL Review. Usually if it's the FPL Hub one, or on Fantasy Football Scout, they will talk about their own Rate My Team tools, but I think that's basically just to plug them. I don't think they really actually hold much confidence in them. If you ever watch anyone who's not actually affiliated with one of those websites, they'll usually talk about FPL Review as the sort of go-to tool. Although this season, as you can see, as someone that follows them quite closely, it's really not helped me. So, that's my sort of take on whether or not they're any good. I can't really talk about Hub and Flicks, but I've heard and read in comments that they're not even as good as Scout in terms of how accurate they are. But that's just anecdotal. To the key question of the video, are players who use Rate My Team tools, cheats? So I've seen this mentioned in lots of comments on Reddit and Twitter and so forth. Probably the best person, or the most entertaining person in terms of talking about if it's a cheat, is Steve-O on Elite FPL, which is a great channel I'd recommend if you've never watched it. Steve-O's probably the most outspoken person on FPL. He can be a bit of a nutter and go quite extreme in his views, and I've heard him. I was trying to find a clip for this video, unfortunately I couldn't find one. Basically says anyone who uses a Rate My Team tool is, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but certainly he said he's an idiot, and why are you playing the game? You shouldn't play it. You're a complete word that I probably can't even repeat, or probably shouldn't repeat during this video. So I'm sure that he's probably going a bit OTT. I mean, he has a tendency to over-exaggerate things, but it's a feeling that I've seen reflected in lots of places, that particularly when, over the last couple of seasons, players who've used the algorithm, such as myself, or Rate My Team tools, have done very well. So are these players like me cheats or not? Well, first of all, I'd say, of course, we're not. It's a game. It's a game, and as long as it's not in the rules, against the rules of the game, to use a particular tool, then you're not cheating. And you put your hands, I guess, or your fate, in terms of how well your FPL team is going to do, into the hands of that algorithm. So for the last 2 seasons, it's helped me immensely. This season, it's absolutely thrown me in the shitter. I don't think anything can really be described as cheating if A, it's in the rules, I'm not against the rules, and B, if following it can fuck you up as much as it can help you. I think there's another argument even beyond that if you watch FPL content on YouTube, and if you've got this far into the video, I can almost guarantee you fall into that category. The content creators you're watching will either be directly talking to you about their FPL tools and what they're predicting. Certainly if you watch any FPL Hub videos, any FPL Scout videos, they'll largely be basing what they're talking about on their Rate My Team tools. And even if you're not watching a channel that's affiliate, which is directly part of one of those big websites, people like Andy from Let's Talk FPL plug those websites, FPL Hub in his case, and usually fit the ratings in somewhere into his videos. But even if they're not directly plugging or associated with those websites, I bet they're probably using at least FPL Review to guide some of their content. Because usually, if they're recommending a player, he's usually predicted to do pretty well in FPL Review, in my experience. I've never seen them recommend anyone who wasn't going to do well, predicted to do well in FPL Review, put it that way. Now, I'm not saying that they go and look at FPL Review to create their content, probably not. It's probably just obvious to them that a player is going to do well, and thus, obviously, FPL Review are predicting the same thing because they think they're going to do well. But essentially, if you're using any sort of, if you're watching any YouTube content and using that to inform or guide your decisions, I would say, is that not cheating as well? You could, to go to the extreme argument would be, well, to take anyone else's opinion on board in making your decisions would be cheating. The only difference between taking content creators' opinions on board and using a Rate My Team tool is Rate My Team gives you a little number, whereas FPL content creators verbalise how well they believe a player is going to do instead of giving you a digit. So anyway, I don't think it's cheating. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But there are pros and cons, I think, in terms of how you feel about your FPL performance. Also, in terms of whether or not you largely base your decisions on an algorithm or a Rate My Team tool, and if you make your decisions more based on watching football, the eye test, or in terms of studying the analytics, etc. So I'll briefly go through what I think the pros and cons are of using a Rate My Team tool. So one, I think a Rate My Team tool is good if you don't actually have much time to watch football. So I have very little time to watch football, particularly these days. I'm very busy on my job. I might catch match of the day or get to watch the Sky Sports highlights on YouTube occasionally. It's very rare that I get to watch a live game. I don't have Sky Sports or anything like that. Unless a live game's on Amazon, I'm not going to get to see it. So if you don't have much time to watch football, you're not going to have much time to come up with your own conclusions anyway, based on the eye test. And, you're more likely to be listening to content creators and stuff in that case anyway. So if you don't have much time to watch football, those sort of tools are useful. It's also good, I'd say, if you're someone who likes to have their decisions backed up. If you're someone who's a little bit indecisive, you're not sure whether to go this way or that way, maybe a Rate My Team tool can say, that player A is going to score 6 more points than player B over the next 6 game weeks, in which case obviously that backs up your decision to go for player A. Or, if you're wondering if making a transfer is the best thing, and you run it through the tool and it says, yeah, that's going to help, that's good. A lot of people talk about using expected goals, analytics, expected goals conceded, etc., for making these decisions. If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of time, or someone like me who really wouldn't want to go in and do all the research on the expected goals, etc., statistics is sort of part of my job. As it is, I don't want to be spending my spare time also doing it. Then these algorithms take that into account. So again, it's a way of saving time. If you don't have much time to watch football, or you don't have much time to analyse all the data in spreadsheets yourself, it helps. I know this is guess, and I'm sure this won't apply to anyone who's watching here. If you want to be good at FPL, but you don't want to put much thought into it or much time into it. So, for example, someone's invited you to a work league, take part in a work league with a £200, £500 prize. You find after a couple of weeks you're not particularly interested in it, but you're very competitive and you want to win. Following one of these websites would be good. I mean, obviously, if you know absolutely nothing about football, FPL review is not going to probably help you that much, because you probably wouldn't be passionate enough to sign up for it anyway. But certainly, I, based on using analytics, have finished top of my work league, I think, 3 or 4 out of the last 5 seasons. Okay, so those are the pros. Basically, the pros that seem to amount to, if you don't really like FPL or football, use a Rate My Team site tool. So the cons mainly rely on a Rate My Team tool if it's your main source of influence, I would say, over your decisions. If you're someone who, similar to I do, or at least have done, I've been too dependent. I think this season I've been too reliant on the suggestions of FPL review. But if you're someone, I think it's fine. Well, this probably wouldn't be relevant to you if you're someone who just checks a Rate My Team tool to sort of make sure you're not doing anything terribly wrong, but bases your decisions originally on your own thinking. But if you're someone who really is almost a slave to what the algorithm's going to tell you, it has the opposite effect of what we've just talked about, basically. If you're watching football and you're thinking that player looks great from the eye test, it takes that out of it, because the algorithm does not take into account your eye test. It takes, if you're someone who enjoys going and doing analysis of expected goals and expected data, it takes that out of it, because it just gives you it in a tiny number. I mean, I always still do look into the fixtures, but I guess it also takes the fun out of researching fixtures somewhat. One of the things I like about researching my team is, figuring out, as sad as it sounds, what 4.5 or 4.5 and 4 million defenders rotate the best over the next 3 game weeks. I guess it still does help to do that if you be relying on a Rate My Team tool, but it would take the fun out of it a bit. So basically I guess it takes the fun out of playing. I don't think, I like doing well. I like the fact that I finished 3,000 last year, but the reason I play FPL, the reason I have researched it, I've talked about in past videos that I've done research into FPL. The reason I'm talking about it on the YouTube channel is I like it. So I guess it doesn't really make sense, if you don't like the process of FPL and making the decisions, etc., to rely mainly on a Rate My Team tool. And I'm realising I'm being very hypocritical because I have this season mainly been making my decisions based on a Rate My Team tool. And I'm 5 million, so I probably need to change that. And I think probably the bigger thing, even above all of those, is, can you really take credit for when things go right? if you're just following an algorithm. You know, if you've researched and made the decisions yourself, taken everything into account, you're going to feel a lot better when things go right for your team than if you're just following some algorithm. So I think the pride that you take in, or the pride that you should feel when your team does well, will be a lot greater if you make your decision yourself and don't rely on a Rank My Team tool compared to if you do. So just to finish up, I do think FPL Rank My Team tools can be useful when the algorithm's working and the variance matches it. It's not this season. Again, I hate looking at it. 5.3 million in the world. But it's not cheating. You know, the game can be played in any way. It's not against the rules to use Rate My Team tools, but it can destroy your enjoyment of the game, and it can diminish the feelings you might have when your FPL team do well, if it's doing well based purely on decisions you've made by following the algorithm or Rate My Team tool. So please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Please leave in the comments, tell me, do you use a Rate My Team tool? If you do, is it any good? Which Rate My Team tool do you use? And do you think people who Rate My Team tool are cheats or are gaining an unfair advantage by using the tool? Okay, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.